Just a quick lesson about some of the tools that you can use inside TinkerCAD. I was telling you about selecting objects, and when you want to select more than one, you can pay attention to the blue outline to see what's highlighted, and these squares, of course, show up around whatever's highlighted. So you can see the orange is not highlighted right now, just the hole cutter is. So if you want to select them both, I usually just hold the Shift key and click on the second item. Now you can see the selection boxes encompass both items, and both items have a blue highlight around their edges. That's how you know what's selected. And then you can also see right here that there are two shapes selected. That's important to pay attention to because sometimes you'll have multiple objects in a design and you only want to group two of them. You don't want to group all of these. So if I accidentally select too many of them, they'll all be grouped. So I usually start by clicking out here and select none. Or you can press Control D. I think, no, Control D is duplicate. Sorry, that was different. But this selection box, you can drag a selection box around objects. So if I just wanted the green in the hole, I could do that. And whatever the selection box touches gets highlighted. You can see the green has a blue outline around it, and I have two shapes selected. But if a selection box is grabbing more things than you want, then just use the click on one object and then hold the Shift key and click on a second object. Now just these two, and you can see two shapes. Then you can click Group, and it will just group those two. See, these two remain untouched. Or you can ungroup. Now some of the other nice tools, see, if I wanted to group all four of them, I would put a selection box around all four. And then I'd have all four of them. And if I group that, then that of course is going to become one object, and that hole cutter cut out all three pieces. So one of the other things, there's a lot of little shortcuts. I know I was telling you if you wanted to duplicate something, you can just click this duplicate button, but the shortcuts on the keyboard work real well also, and that's what Control D. Control D is duplicate. Now I have a second one. I just press Control D. Another useful tool is when an object is off the build plate. It's up in the air, and you want it to be back down flat on the build plate. You can just press the letter D for drop. D, drop. And it drops it straight to the build plate. Another one I use all the time is when I'm working on multiple things, and I might have my focus here on this one, but now I want to focus on this one. If I click it, now it's selected, and I press my F key. The F key changes the focus, and it focuses on the selected object. So it's really useful for when you've got a lot of things on the screen and you want your focus to go to one object. Then you can hit the F key to change your focus. So again, the F key focuses, brings you back to center on what the selected object is. The D key drops it to the build plate. Now you can also use just standard Windows copy and paste, which is Control C, as in Charlie. It makes a copy in memory, and then if I press Control V as in Victor, it will paste it, offset just a little bit. So it's like duplicate, except it is just a single copy, and it offsets it for you so you can see it. So Control C for copy, Control V, Victor, for paste. Another really useful thing to know about the duplicate tool, whether you use this button or whether you press Control D as in dog, that Control D is duplicate. But here's a really cool thing about duplicate. If I duplicate this sphere or this cylinder, so there, it's duplicated. Now I'm going to move this one over here, but I want it to get smaller. So I can shrink it down. A good way to shrink all three axes at the same time is to hold your Shift key when you do this. If I hold my Shift key, the entire object shrinks uniformly in all axes. If I wasn't holding my Shift key, watch what happens. It just shrinks in whatever axis I'm pushing it in. It's not getting shorter, it's just changing whatever axis. So if you don't want that to happen, I'm going to Control Z, as in Zulu, will do undo. Control Z, undo. So I went back. Now I'm going to hold the Shift key, I'm going to shrink this down a little bit. Okay, so now I have duplicated this object, moved it over, and shrunk it down. The duplicate remembers what you did. If you hit duplicate again right now, it will repeat what you did to this. It'll repeat it to this. So watch. Boom. Oh, lost my memory because I clicked off on it. Let me start that over again. I got sidetracked. Okay, duplicate, move it over, hold the shift key and shrink all three axes at the same time. And now I'm going to duplicate again. See, it remembered what I did, so it did it again. It moved it over, shrunk it down, hit duplicate again, Control D. It did it again, moved it over, shrunk it down. I hit duplicate again, again, again. It just keeps doing whatever I did. But once I click off, once I click somewhere else, now duplicate doesn't work anymore. It goes back to just being a straight duplicate, and there's just one on top of the other. So just remember, if you have a transform, if you're trying to do something that has a repeating pattern, you can use duplicate to repeat that over and over. I'm going to Control Z, Zulu, to undo all these. See, it's undo, undo, undo. There we go. Yeah, so a lot of times when I'm building something like a clock face, I can use duplicate to repeat the patterns, and it'll just keep on. Like if I wanted to put a, if I wanted to put something around this, let's say in the hours position, say I was making a clock. So F to focus. I'm going to shrink this down to something small and put it over here. F to focus brings me back. So pretending I'm making a clock, this would be like the 6 o'clock. Oops. Move it over here. My grid. Now see, you see when I try to move this, it snaps too far. I just want to move it a little bit. I don't want to move it that much. It's moving that much because my grid snap is on 1 millimeter. If I change that to 0.1, now I can move this with much finer granularity. So this is your grid snap. So I usually work on 0.1. That allows me to move things around more carefully. Now, if I duplicate this first one, and I'm going to move it up to the 12 o'clock position, I'm using my arrow keys. My arrow keys will move objects around also. So now I've got the 12 o'clock and the 6 o'clock. If I were to group these, and then there, they are one object now. They are no longer separate. Now, if I duplicate, Control D, now they're duplicated. Now I'm going to rotate this one 22 to that first increment. And when you rotate things, if I keep my mouse inside, it snaps to 0, 22, 45. It snaps to these inner lines, so you can do perfect rotations. If you want a more fine rotation, you move to the outside, and now you can do fine rotations in 1 degree increments. If you need a finer rotation than 1 degree, you can click on this and just type in 22.1 if you wanted to. So now I've duplicated the 12 and 6 o'clock and rotated them that first click. Now watch what happens if I hit duplicate again. Control D. There's the next one. Control D. There's the next one. Control D. And I can populate the hands of a clock just like that by using Control D. As long as I don't click off, because once you click off, then Control D forgets what you did. So useful tools, the ways to get around. D drops to the build plate. F will focus on whatever you have selected. So if it's not in your field of view, you hit F and it brings it right back to center. And then Control C for copy, Control V for paste. These are all very useful tools. But just remember, to select multiple items, you can click on one item, hold the Shift key, and click on a second item. Hold the Shift key, click on a third, a fourth, and just keep track of the number of shapes you have selected before you group or ungroup. That's it. That's some of the basic tools that'll help you get around.